What's up, Melanated family? How's everybody doing out there, man? I want to welcome everybody to another episode of Melanated Mondays. This is a weekly show that I do. My name is Harrison. I represent a platform called Melanated Fathers of America, melanatedfathers.com. To be exact, that's the actual website. This is a show that I do every Monday called Melanated Mondays. On Melanated Mondays, we take a look at different things that we go through as parents. We take a look at different things that we go through in our relationships, different things going on in society. For the most part, though, most of the topics are kind of based around parenting and just dealing with your kids, since that's it's kind of the basis of my platform. If you guys aren't aware, I have a platform called Melanated Fathers of America. If you go to the website, melanatedfathers.com, you'll see on the website that we do a podcast every couple weeks where I talk to different entertainers, writers, different people who are just passionate about whatever they're doing in life, you know what I'm saying? We do this show, which is Melanated Mondays, where I have a specific topic in a conversation. Also on the website, I write a lot of different articles about situations dealing with our children, situations dealing with our relatives, situations dealing with our relationships. On the website, there's also a History Matters section. In the History Matters section, we write articles about different people, places, times in history, all meant to, it's all meant to be used as a form of inspiration. Like, a lot of us understand that we come from Africa and we come from greatness and we were the first people here. A lot of us got the general idea of what it means to be a black person in America, but I like going into the details of these stories of different people who've done great things. And I think getting the details about these instances can not only help you when you look at the landscape of America, but it could also be a form of inspiration that we can use. And knowing what we know about, some of us know about history, when you look at the school system, the public school system specifically, they don't really teach you about history. They don't really teach you about our history, like the details behind our history. You got the little bullshit Black History Month, but they don't really go into detail about a lot of the players and the motivation behind what they did. So I think it's important, and I think with everything that we go through in black society, understanding where we come from, the details about where we come from, I think if you are doing bad, or if you are in a situation where you don't know who you are, if you're searching for knowledge of self, I think taking this route, for me at least, has been one of the most productive ways to do it. So on the website, we have the History Matters section. I have a book of the month that I do because reading has helped me. I grew up with like a really bad stuttering problem. Still stutter sometimes, but I had a really bad stuttering problem coming up, and that affected my confidence. That affected how I spoke to people. It affected a lot, you know what I'm saying? And reading is solely responsible for changing that for me. You feel me? And not just the stuttering, but just with the information I've learned, just with the perspective that I have on when you read things about history from the past, and then you look at what's going on now, it gives you in my opinion, it gives you a clearer perspective on what you're looking at. So on the website, we have the History Matters, the book of the month. We have a community forum section where it's videos from inspiring people throughout black history, different men that I idolize, different men that I have a lot of respect for, who speak truth to power. We do a lot of just articles about these people too. So a lot of information about black shit, basically. A lot of information about melanated people, a lot of information about where we come from. And it's my take on these things. In my opinion, being a father of five, I have, 5 kids, my oldest kids being 21. When I was 21, 22 years old with 4 kids, didn't have a father in the house, didn't have any no male guidance when it came to that kind of stuff. I wish I would have had a platform where I could have went to and read articles about how to help my 2-year-old sit down, or how to help my teenager who may decide they want to smoke weed. You see what I'm saying? So I look at it from that standpoint. When I was younger and I was a black man who had all these kids prematurely, I wish I would have had a platform that would have informed me in And I could have used that information as inspiration, really, So that's what I try to do with the platform, man. So I welcome everybody to another episode of Melanated Mondays. I'm happy y'all here with me. Now, on today's episode, what I want to talk about, and some of these things that I talk about, like when I flesh out a topic, sometimes I've touched on it before, but in my opinion, it's just really important to drill down on certain issues. You feel me? So, what I want to talk about today, and all of us has seen this, and I see this a lot in our community, and I always speak specifically to our community, even though a lot of these issues everybody deal with, no matter what color you are. But I'm of the belief that we've been so disenfranchised, we've been so unjustly treated in this country. When we look at finances and wealth in America, we're at the bottom or close to the bottom, if not at the bottom. You know what I'm saying? So I think I take that as my duty to talk to my people specifically. So even though some of the shit we talk about goes on everywhere, I'm talking directly to my people, right? So when I look around our community and I see a lot of young parents, this is something I'm noticing more in younger parents my age and younger, even some older, but primarily parents my age and under, have decided to be friends with their kids, right? And I think there's different levels to why that's a bad idea. So that's what I want to discuss with the family today. Do you think, and that's the question you can ask yourself, do you think it's okay for a parent to be friends with an 11-year-old or 12-year-old? You see what I'm saying? And when I mean friends, I mean having adult conversations with this child. Telling this child about your personal the details behind your personal business, and speaking to them in a manner that you would your friend, right? So I think there's different levels of how this can be ineffective for us, and I always like to look at it from the framework of a black person, right? Or a melanated person, right? Because we see white kids all the time talking to their parents a certain way. We see them running around, nobody telling them shit. Unfortunately, family, they can do that. Unfortunately, they can do that. If you black in America, there's a different set of rules for you. And okay, back to what I was saying, family. So basically, there's different levels to it. If we're looking at white kids and how they conduct themselves with their family when they're out in public, it's not the same for us. We living in America, being black, being melanated, you should know, and you better make sure you find a way to talk to your kids about the fact that we live under a different set of rules than other nationalities of people. And let me break that down for you. So when we talk about being friends with our kids and the negative effects of it, I think and I'll go through a list of things I feel can be detrimental to your relationship with your child by actually being friends with them, right? Now, granted, as kids grow older, you want to create a level of communication and dialogue that's age appropriate. So as they get older, you will begin to speak to them a little more loosely, a little more freely. And I don't think we ever get to the friend stage, but we can go from, being, instead of being a dictator, we can go from being like a dictator where I tell you what to do this, do that, to being more of a mentor where you're guiding them opposed to just making them do shit. You see what I'm saying? And with the guiding comes a looser form of conversation that's more relatable based on their age. So I get that. But here's the thing. And this is for all my parents out there. If you've never thought about this, if you have friends that if you have people in your family that are friends with their kids, make sure you talk to them about this shit, right? So look, the first thing that'll happen, in my opinion, if you have a 6-7-year-old kid and their whole life you're talking to them about everything, adults are having conversations, you allow them to come in on a conversation and even give their input or sit in or whatever the case may be, right? But to me, what I noticed, if you continually have these loose type of conversations with your kids, where you cuss with them, play with them, treat them like a friend, right? What'll happen is, and this is typically, when a moment comes where you really need to get your point across, or a moment comes where you really need them to do some shit, they're not going to take you serious. They're not going to have as much respect for you as you need to be the leader of your family. You see what I'm saying? And what I've noticed, because again, we're speaking directly about our melanated family and how black people are perceived in this country. What I've also noticed is if you allow your kid to have that type of loose, disrespectful banner with you, they gonna do the same shit outside of the house. They gonna do the same shit when they talk to their teacher, when they talking to an uncle or their father or their mother, whatever the case may be. You see what I'm saying? So you're actually setting a bad precedence to how this young person is going to conduct themselves with older people. You see what I'm saying? There has to be, you have to draw a line in the sand. Okay, this is what I'm going to accept. This is what I'm not going to accept. And again, it's not like you can't play with your kids. You just have to draw that line and let them know, okay, we not going to go that far. You see what I'm saying? And parents know, and all my parents out there, you know that feeling. I've even had the feeling before. That's why I'm able to speak on it, because I've had to go through that where I'm too loose with my kids, and then they come back and talk to me, and I'm like, oh, how he just spoke to me sound like I'm his friend. He was a little too loose, but I can't blame him. That shit is my fault. You see what I'm saying? So when we have, when you speak loose to your child like that, and they begin to even. It could be inadvertent. Like, they may not even be trying to be disrespectful, but if you're 7 or 8 years old and you're talking to an adult like they 7 or 8 years old, it's probably going to come off a little disrespectful. And the thing about it, when you send your kids outside of your home, when they're at school, when they're at library, when they're anywhere outside of your home, everybody isn't going to be as patient with them. Everybody isn't going to take the time to show them the necessary amount of empathy to help them out. Most adults expect your kid to be respectful when they see him. You see what I'm saying? And again, being black, we get looked at a little bit differently anyways. So if your black child is in class talking to his teacher like they friends, it's not going to go right. I mean, it's not going to go right. You see what I'm saying? That's going to affect them learning. That's going to affect a lot of shit. And again, this can all be fixed by being cognizant of that as you speak to your kids. I understand some of us is younger. I understand some of us may not have outside friends. Like, you may not have a real large social circle, so your kids become the people you talk to. I get that, but you still got to draw that line in the sand that demands respect. Because typically, if your kid respects you, it's going to be pretty easy for them to respect authority. It's going to be pretty easy for them to respect adults outside of your house. Now, another thing that can happen if you divulge too much information to your kids and treat them too friendly, you can ruin their perspective on certain things. Because in my opinion, an 11, 12-year-old, even 13, all in that age range, these children don't have the ability to digest some of the information you give them. You're telling them information about somebody you don't like at work. You're telling them information about bills that's due, about the other parent. Like, a lot of this information, their brains aren't developed enough to process some of this shit you're talking about. So this can change their perspective on their father. This can change their perspective on their mother. This can change their perspective on other things in life when they're using the words you tell them. But again, they're not old enough to really funnel all of this through the right processes to come to a conclusion of what you're really fucking talking about. So you can have them hating somebody. You can have them not understanding some aspect about life because of how you spoke about it. You see what I'm saying? So again, can you speak to your kids about some of these same things? Yes, but you have to tailor it based on their age. Tailor it based on their age, and some shit they just don't have to know. You see what I'm saying? Problems you going through with the other parent, figure out a way to let them know there may be some rocky, it may be kind of rocky right now or whatever, but giving them too much information can affect their childhood. You see what I'm saying? So again, they can lose respect for you. They can lose respect for other adults. You can ruin or have a negative effect on their perspective on life or different things that they see. Another thing that can happen that I've seen happen plenty of times is actually happened to me and plenty of people that I know. I think a lot of times when you have a parent who treats their child like a friend, they also express all of their frustrations too, especially with the other parent. I know parents who think, I'm gonna prove kind of a point that the other parent is bad or not doing well just so you can see me more favorable. You know what I'm saying? If you're dealing with a person that you have kids with, and let's say they not shit, they're not responsible, they don't step up to the plate, they don't do anything that you feel is conducive to positive parenting, right? You don't have to tell your kid these things. If your kid is in their presence, if your kid has a relationship with them, if your kid is around them for a long enough time, they gonna see what kind of shit they be on. If they full of shit, the kid is gonna see that the father or the mother is full of shit. You don't gotta tell them nothing, because what'll happen is you can actually have your kid hating the other parent or having a large amount of animosity towards the other parent, and it's really based on the fact that you don't like the person or you have a big issue with the person. You see what I'm saying? This ain't right, y'all. We need to make it a point to don't feed all, because they don't forget that shit. Let's say you speak about the father of your kid like he ain't shit. And granted, let's say he is though, right? Let's say you speak about him like he ain't shit. All this negative information you giving the child, and let's say the child grows up, and as time goes on, they begin to formulate. What happened? What happened? They begin to formulate an opinion on the father based on that, and even when they become cool with the father or mother, you think they're gonna forget that shit? You think they're not gonna remember the things that you said about them? And I think sometimes we abuse. Inadvertently, sometimes we not even knowing that we're doing this, but I think sometimes we abuse the love that a child has for us. Because if your kid love you, our kids love us, y'all. So they're gonna believe what you say. You see what I'm saying? They're gonna believe what you say. And if you're a woman, it's something about, especially if you have a little boy, it's something about protecting a woman, right? For all of us, it's something about protecting a woman. You see a woman cry, you see a woman frustrated or anything, you want to kind of help. And that happens even more so, I think, for a little boy with his mom. So if you're painting all these negative pictures about the father, how he's hurting you, all this bullshit, he gonna hate that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? He gonna hate his pops. And that's not necessary. If his father is a man that does not handle his responsibilities, or is a man that's not a stand-up dude, the kid will definitely see it. You don't gotta say shit. You feel me? Now, So lose respect for you, lose respect for authority figures. You can fuck up their perspective on life. You can fuck up their perspective on different people. You can speak so ill will of someone or the other parent that the kid begins to dislike the other parent or dislike whoever you speaking about. You see what I'm saying? Without even having a contextual understanding of adulthood. They don't even know what it means to be an adult yet, but they're judging adults based on what they're hearing from their mom. Real fucked up shit, right? And last but not least, and this is all my opinion, y'all, but this is real shit. Last but not least, what I think can happen if you treat your young kid, boy or girl, like they're an adult, you're having adult conversations with them, allowing them to make adult decisions. Ultimately, what I think will happen is you will make them feel like they're an adult. You'll make them feel like they're grown. You'll empower them to give them the adult feeling when they haven't put in none of the work. They haven't had the experiences yet to consider themselves an adult. But what'll happen is if you're putting all this information on them, you're acting as you're allowing them to act as your friend. Excuse me. You're allowing them to act as your friend. They gonna think like you got a little boy that you give all this information to about bills, you give all this information to about the shit you going through. He gonna think he the man of the house. He gonna think he the man of the house. And by the way, when in our community, there's long been a saying where if a mom has a boy in the house, and let's say there's no dad in the house, we tell the boy, okay, you the man in the house. Look, family, that's the worst shit you can do. That's the worst shit he's not the man of the house. He's the boy of the house. So you're going to have this little boy trying to assume adult roles. And this could be, listen, if you struggling financially or you going through shit and you in an economically deprived community and you tell your little boy, okay, it's time for you to be the man of the house, and you tell him you struggling, you tell him it's hard to get food, it's hard with cash at this time, you don't know what he finna go out there and do. You see what I'm saying? You don't know what he's going to feel he has to do to feed his family or to help his family out because he's been told he's the man in the house. When in actuality, he needs to be a kid. It's bad enough that in society, white supremacy and racism. This society treats 12-year-old black boys like they fucking 19. This society treats 19-year-old black boys like they 26. You see what I'm saying? Society is already growing our boys up quicker than they need to be. We don't gotta make that shit worse by putting the same type of shit in their head. Kids need to be fucking kids, family. They need to play. They need to play sports. They need to have like a carefree childhood almost. And unfortunately, so many of us in our community have to deal with situations where we are made to grow up too fast based on the environment we're in, based on the information that a mom gives, like I just said. You see what I'm saying? And I know, of course I'm not a woman, but I can only imagine how hard it is being a woman with these kids you have to take care of with no man around. I get that. Even though you play a part in creating that shit, I can only imagine how difficult that is, but that's not a man. Your son is not a man. I think a lot of females need to take the necessary time to find a man. Take the necessary time, do some soul searching, see what you got to get right with yourself, determine why relationships aren't working or relationships aren't lasting. You see what I'm saying? I know a lot of women personally, and I'm not like trying to bash women or nothing, but I got to keep that shit real. I know a lot of women who say, I'm single because men don't do this, because men ain't shit, because men ain't this. Well, sometimes, ladies, you got to look at yourself. Sometimes you got to do a little more soul searching, because in my opinion, in society, sometimes, like being a young father was difficult. Like figuring out how to move forward, how to be a man to these boys. It's difficult. But when you slip up, when you make little mistakes, society kind of has a word for you. They call you a deadbeat. Now, of course, if a man don't do shit, ain't never spent no time with his kid, never be around his kid, never tried to get his kids on the weekends, during the week, whatever, never attempted, never made effort to be in your kid's life, then yeah, that's a fucking deadbeat. We can call a spade, yes, but that's not the case all the time. Sometimes you don't do what a woman wants. Now all of a sudden you a deadbeat, right? But this is the thing. Have you ever heard the term deadbeat mother? Like ever? Have you heard anybody say that? You see what I'm saying? I think in our society, for better or for worse, women are coddled a little more. When a woman has a baby, and let's say she's the sole provider of this baby, she's the sole provider, she does everything for the baby, she has to live wherever she has to live with the baby, people are going to instantly look at that and be like, oh, let me help. Let me take care of. Where's that filthy man at? Where he ran off on you? Why he not around? Everybody's perspective is always, oh, he ran off. Oh, he ain't shit, right? And the woman who's left there, she can, in my opinion, she can tell she can tell any story that she wants. He wasn't shit. We didn't work out, but he did this, he did that, he did that. Man, look. How often do women say, you know what, I ran him off? You know what, I wasn't a good person at the time that I was in a relationship with him. Or, I just wanted a baby. I got pregnant. I didn't make it seem like it was a decision that both of us needed to make. So he got upset. You see what I'm saying? So there's, I guess the point I'm making is there are two sides to every story, family. So we have to be aware of that. And what we do in our household kind of sets the precedence for all of these different attitudes, for how kids are going to conduct themselves outside of the home, how they're going to view themselves. You see what I'm saying? So it's important, family, that we allow the relationship with our children to just manifest the way they're going to manifest. You don't have to push too much personal information on a child. You don't have to do things to make your child like you more than the other parent. I mean, that's fuck shit, man. And how I see it, because as a young father, I did a lot of stupid shit too. I talked about the mother of my, when they were younger, much younger, I talked about the mother of my kids to my kids, and that was a mistake. That was a mistake. That was out of frustration. That was out of immaturity. But ultimately, that shit was a mistake. Because when we look at society and how everybody views us, everybody outside of the black community views us, if we're fighting with each other, if we're struggling to create structure. If we're struggling to create synergy between the relationships we create, we already losing, family. It's hard enough going outside of our house and facing racism, facing prejudice, facing all these different things that if you black, you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it's important that we understand that when dealing with our kids, it's not just about the interaction we're having with them, but it's about how are they going to interact with the outside world. Because we know there's a penitentiary system waiting for our children. The school to prison pipeline is real. If you go to a lot of these public schools and see how they treat the kids, you would swear they're getting them prepared for prison. And as parents, of course, racism is one thing, and I think everybody that's black, that's melanated, should do their due diligence to fight racism. That's my opinion. But at the least, raise your kids right. At the least, have an understanding of what's going on outside. So when we send our children outside, they're the best representation of our families, but not just our families, but black people in general. You feel me? So that's been another episode, man, of Melanated Mondays. I want to thank everybody for continually rocking with me. For continually tuning in to all the things that I do. I really, really, really do appreciate it. I'm going to keep pushing, keep creating content, keep pushing my organization further. On Thanksgiving, anybody out there, man, who knows somebody that may be struggling on Thanksgiving, have them come through. We're having a Thanksgiving feast on Thanksgiving at the funeral home. I'll post a flyer on my social media. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Melanated Mondays. I'm out.